Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You got it.
If I look this way from me?
And then
tabs that go in here, and it's to try to accommodate different spots. Yeah, zip. So, but it does.
You think you could get into it?
for right now.
Just
Yeah.
sitting on the
Rotating.
Fresh food through your commercial vehicles. What Vicky has told me the plan is for you. Your utensils will be pre-positioned with your crew-specific menu as well. Okay.
What's B2?
Apples and spice.
Mixed fruit, not representative of what it looks like on orbit. Okay, so this is the galley rack, which is in node 1 port 4. Sorry, if you can see that. Dispense, and then select the amount of water you want to add.
Or do it say?
250.
Yep.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
And then press the button. Yep.
I always want one less.
A lot more.
Yeah, make it a fatty.
Yeah. That's.
Yeah, water it down a little bit. Yeah.
Yep.
Alright, cycle this. Ambient. 250.
Yep.
It's definitely going in.
Because once the dispense is complete, you have to cycle that switch to start a new dispense.
Alright.
Oh, that's
So-
interesting too.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi guys, how you doing?
awesome.
Hello.
Great.
That's going to have to be louder.
Okay, so I just wanted to start with, as your first, I'm hearing. How's this? How's this? Is this loud enough? for some reason, my questions are feeding back through to us. All right, can everyone hear me okay? Great, okay. So as the first crew for like a commercial flight like this, what will be your mission generally?
I think for both of the vehicles, the missions that we have in front of us are kind of shakeout cruises to make sure that these new capsules can execute the mission of rotating crews to and from the International Space Station.
So what's training like for you guys?
Well, we're just starting the training now and starting to work on it. And so one of the things that's going to be different about this than a different test flight, is on a test flight as opposed to a regular flight, is you actually kind of go back and forth to get the procedures. You know, we're going to work with the training team to work on the actual things that we're going to teach to the astronauts.
So what are you guys looking forward to the most when you take your first trip into space?
Well, this will be my first time to space ever, so I'm pretty excited for that opportunity. I'm really looking forward to the training, and then certainly when we launch that day from the Cape, it's going to be a huge success for the entire team.
Are you encouraged by the idea of more commercial flights now and in the future, and it's instead of it just being always NASA flights?
Well, yes. So the way that I'd like to see the business evolve is that right now we provide service to NASA astronauts back and forth to low Earth orbit, and then hopefully if we build this capability, will they come? Will others come and want either for vacation purposes or business purposes, or perhaps other countries that cannot afford a space program of their own can get into what has formerly been a pretty small club?
Why do you think space exploration is important to begin with?
Well, I think, you know, we've got a history as humans of exploration, and I think to stop now doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. I think we all got into this business to explore, and the next logical step is low Earth orbit and then onto the moon. So I think we just are a small part of it right now, but I think that's what our intent is going forward.
And then how would you say that helps us here on Earth?
Well, you get a whole bunch of different technological developments. You know, with the space age, you know, we've seen microprocessors, we've seen a lot of things that translate back, the GPS constellation, a number of things we see constantly that we benefit from our daily lives that have been developed because of the space program.
So for each of you, or who would like to answer, what would you say is the most intriguing thing about the universe?
I think for me, the most intriguing thing about the universe is just how much variety is out there. And so I think we're in a phase now where we're just discovering what other planets might be like throughout our galaxy, and then what might be out further. And so really it's that diversity that's the most intriguing thing to me. We do our best to predict, but sometimes we find things that surprise us, and that's why we explore.
Anyone else?
Well, to me, one of the big things about space exploration is you kind of get an appreciation. We know quite a bit about the Earth. There's still a lot more to learn, but then when you look out to the space, we have so much more to learn. You know, we know just very little about where we live, you know, going out to the universe and looking out beyond. You know, you've got galaxies with stars, and then you continue to go on. The universe is massive, so there's a lot left to learn.
Just a few short days ago, you know, Mars, we had sort of not found the elusive evidence of water. We had suspected it was there, but Just a few days ago, I believe we had some reasonably conclusive evidence that there's subterranean water out there that we can detect through ground penetrating radar. So what's interesting is that this story always changes. The moon we used to think was pretty lunar, that was very desolate, and now we know that there's water ice mixed in, or frozen ice mixed in with the lunar regolith at the North and South Poles. So all these life-giving ingredients that we used to think we owned most of it turns out they're peppered all over the solar system.
All right, and just one last question. Do you think there's other life out there on other planets?
I do.
I think we're not sure, and that's one of the questions that we're certainly trying to answer. I think, either conclusion you come to, whether we're the only, species in the universe, that's incredible. That would be amazing. But on the other side, if there's some other life form out there, that's equally as incredible, and we hope to find it.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Institutional shareholders are the base of their shareholdings, and they don't show up for the shareholder meetings, and there's usually one or two angry people who yell at the board of directors.
Well, wait, one or two. Wait.
Hi, everyone. This is CNBC. Just wanted to make sure you can hear us all okay?
Ownership.
Yes.
Not just sharing in the upside of the property.
Hey, thank you.
In the ownership and the management of the company. There was a sort of an assumption, and suddenly that's become bifurcated, and maybe it's just... It's media stocks. It's become a major issue. But don't you think that's an issue? When I buy into the company, I'm not just buying an upstream profits. I'd like to have some say.
Hi, guys. This is the producer in the control room. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is getting hurt.
You're welcome.
Hey. You're welcome.
Good to be here.
Well, in theory, you are correct, Bob. In reality, very little gets done.
Hi. So just so you know, the people who will be doing the interview, we've got Morgan Brennan, Bob Pisani, and Sarah Eisen. If you guys could just go down the line and pronounce each of your names for me, that would be great.
Doug Hurley.
Bob Bankin.
Eric Bowe.
Nicole Mann.
Chris Ferguson.
Hedge fund Elliott Management hates the word secretive.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Better. It said, this bothersome word is usually appended like some chrome automobile ornament to the words hedge fund. At the end of the letter, Elliott included other words it thinks are overused, including correction, bubble, bear market, and alpha. Okay.
He doesn't like the word secretive?
What?
That's a confidential filing.
From Elliott. This is from Elliott, okay?
He sued people who distributed his confidential investor letter years before. He probably is. Relative to somebody like Bill Gross shares his thoughts with everybody as to what's going on. Jeremy Grantham shares his thoughts with everybody. Mr. Singer doesn't like to share his thoughts with everybody. That's why he gets called secretive.
Starbucks is the latest retailer to get in on the crypto craze. The coffee giant is working with Microsoft and Global Exchange on a new platform that will allow customers to pay for items with cryptocurrencies. Starbucks is working on launching the new company by November. Why shouldn't we be able to pay for our frappuccinos with Bitcoin?
Because it's a bad currency. It doesn't fulfill the function that currency is supposed to use. By the way, when I first saw the story, I hate to say it, I thought this was fake news. This is the kind of story that's put out by people who are long Bitcoin, who want to get a story
Starbucks
out there.
Starbucks isn't the only company experimenting with taking Bitcoin.
I'm not what they've seen, the data has shown that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin are used less and less for transactions now.
Okay, stand by. We're coming to you next.
Agrees with you. I mean, remember,
I understand,
the
but
CEO here is very close to the whole cryptocurrency thing. They paid very close attention to what's going on. They have a major investment in one of the exchanges, Coinbase, which may be one of the big ones going forward. And by the way, it's not necessarily. I think that you're right on the observation that as a medium to pay for things, Bitcoin has been a failure. As a store of value, though, well, some people are playing it as a way to play the blockchain game. That's unfortunate. But maybe it's not our business. Maybe if they think there's a future there to do it, people want to do it. I think it's crazy to pay for Bitcoin with pizza, but if they want to do it, I think it's fine. I think it's a very important move towards making it more legitimate to a certain extent. And with the NYSE, I mean ICE behind that, that's not a joke anymore. I think that's a very serious move.
But I did think it was fake news when I first saw the story. Yeah. You know, they put these stories out there all the time to juice the.
That's why we have you to filter us out.
Let's move on to space, because NASA today announcing astronauts who will take the first trips into space from U.S. soil since a space shuttle flight 7 years ago. Under NASA's multi-billion-dollar commercial crew program, the agency has scheduled Boeing's Starliner and SpaceX's Crew Dragon vehicles for launch that starts in 2019. Our Morgan Brennan now joins us with the Team NASA selected to man these missions. We welcome Christopher Ferguson, Nicole Mann, and Eric Bowe for Boeing, Robert Benkin, and Douglas Hurley for SpaceX. Morgan, take it away.
Yeah, just for a little bit of context, Sarah, I just want to note, as you mentioned, the U.S. does not currently have the capability to send folks into space right now. We rely on the Russians to do this. So this program and the astronauts we're now sitting down to speak to represent the first time we're able to do this starting next year. That's when the target dates are, since 2011. So thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on the news that you will be the first. I want to start with you, Chris Ferguson, because not only were you the last space shuttle commander back in 2011, you worked for Boeing. You've been very closely involved in developing Boeing's Starliner spacecraft for their part of the program. Did you ever think that you'd be going back to space on a commercial mission as the first ever private citizen?
Hey, thanks, Morgan. Well, I'll tell you, when we finished up the shuttle program about 7 years ago, I thought my flying in space days were certainly over. Of course, Boeing brought me into their fold shortly after that and interested me in developing our next way to low Earth orbit. So ever since then, I've been a part of the team, and now it's come full circle and have an opportunity to fly it. Really excited about it, Morgan, thank you.
And I think, Chris, one of the key things here is that in the past, the rockets have always been developed and operated by NASA, owned by NASA. Now it's being done by Boeing and SpaceX. It's the private sector.
It's a very interesting twist, and I believe it's important that we convey that we're now providing a commercial service to low Earth orbit that, of course, our flagship customer is NASA, but that if we build it, will they come? Will other customers come from other places, perhaps space tourism, perhaps other countries that are interested in space programs of their own?
Robert and Doug, you're going to be the Crew Dragon test flight astronauts for SpaceX. Now, SpaceX has logged quite a number of records, milestones, but in terms of U.S. activity in space, it's still relatively new to the game. What's it like to work with this company?
It's exciting. It's a fairly young workforce, so Bob and I are two of the older folks out there when we go out to work with them. But there's a lot of energy out there. There's a lot of smart people that are working very hard to get the human spaceflight side of things into orbit. You know, they've been working with NASA, and they provide cargo services for the International Space Station, and they've been doing that for the last several years, and this is kind of a next logical step for them as a company as well.
Bob Pisani here. I'll just throw that to any one of you gentlemen. First, thank you for making space flights exciting. As a boy who grew up in the 60s, I'm so happy that this is in the news again. You're all making us very proud. We make a big thing about you fellows as a commercial crew program. I'm wondering if there's a difference between all of, and women as well, if there's a difference between the commercial aspects of this and the old the old NASA program? Was your training different in any way? How is commercial different from what we were doing in the 70s and 80s and 90s with the NASA program?
I think I would say that kind of the big difference that we've seen, Bob, and great name, by the way, that we've seen is that we really are leveraging technology that's used for our kind of commercial applications, the launch of satellites in SpaceX's case, making some minor modifications to hopefully improve the reliability of their vehicle, and then that reliable vehicle then they'll continue to use on the commercial side. And so that's probably the biggest piece for me is it's not like the space shuttle where every piece, the external tank, the solid rocket boosters, the shuttle itself, were all NASA unique hardware for a NASA unique mission. We're able to leverage quite a bit of technology from the commercial sector, and that makes a big difference in terms of being able to fly often enough to have confidence in the reliability that we should expect.
Now, we're going to put up a picture on our screen. It's going to be of the American flag that was affixed to the International Space Station back in 2011 on that last space shuttle mission that, Chris, I know you were on. I think the whole idea here, legend has it that that's going to be retrieved by the astronaut that goes up again in a U.S.-made vehicle, which, as we know from this program, is expected to be next year. Which one of you is going to capture the flag?
That's a great question, Morgan. Of course, Doug Hurley on the other end, he and I flew together on STS-135. So I suppose it's a bit of a friendly race. And, you know, just as an aside, we had the opportunity just before this broadcast to speak to Ricky Arnold, who's the astronaut on the International Space Station now, who actually found the flag. I think it had been hiding in a Christmas decoration box somewhere along the line. But hey, whoever gets there, we're going to do it safely, and we're going to bring it home and make America proud.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I want to say to all of you, thank you for your service to this country, and good luck as you train and get ready for your missions. The new astronauts of the NASA Commercial Crew Program.
And amen to that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up, we'll look at the
Hi, this is Marcia Dent at the Kennedy Space Center at the AP. Can you read me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear, Marcia.
Well, congratulations, everyone. I don't know who I should start with, but how do you see this as a day in terms of the history of the spaceflight program? Seems momentous. It's a new era. Things are now going a new way. Sort of put that in perspective for me, please.
I think from our perspective, we've been at this for a while, and what's a little bit different right now is just the amount of interest that kind of gets kind of generated from an event like this. And so we're really just excited to be able to share what we've accomplished so far and let folks know that we really are getting ready to go off and fly again from the Florida coast. I think that for us, it's going to feel about the same because we're going to be just as busy as we were last week, next week this time.
Do you get the sense? Do you get the sense that you're almost going back to what it must have been, what it must have felt like for the Mercury astronauts, or some of the other early flyers stepping onto brand new spacecraft?
I think today the energy that we felt in the Teague Auditorium with everybody there surrounding the announcement was incredible. It's something I've never felt before, and I really think that the country and really the world is going to be behind us, and we're ushering this new era of American spaceflight. I really think it's just the beginning of a partnership with our commercial industries, and then as we look further beyond low Earth orbit, back towards the moon, and eventually to Mars.
Tell me, I'm just sort of curious, did you guys have any say-so in which capsule, which company you got assigned to, or did they pick names out of a hat? How did that go down?
I'll take that one, Marcia, only because I worked for Boeing. I didn't expect to be assigned to a SpaceX vehicle, but I've been working with that team for about 7 years now, ever since the Space Shuttle program ended. And this is an interesting time, of course, for Boeing because, of course, their capsule is in the mix, but also the first time they're going to send a Boeing astronaut aboard, up to low Earth orbit in the International Space Station.
Tell me, Chris, what are you calling your? I know that in the shuttle days there were payload specialists. Are you considered a spacecraft specialist, a capsule specialist? Maybe they haven't even gotten a real title for you yet.
No, you're giving me a lot of good suggestions, though, Marcia. We'll have to see how this all pans out. I think right now we'll stick with the title of a commercial astronaut.
And one more for you. What do you think you bring to the flight that your colleagues next to you do not? What does the Boeing test pilot bring that NASA astronauts don't?
Not much, Marcia. I'll tell you, this is a real esteemed crowd. A lot of spaceflight experience here. I've had the pleasure of flying with a couple of these gentlemen in the past. So in terms of astronaut experience, not much. What I think I bring to the table is I've been involved with the Boeing vehicle since day one. So the very inner workings of it, I understand my fingerprints are all over it. So good or bad, it's got my name on it, and I'm sure it's going to be good.
Maybe for the others there, how did you guys get assigned? Did you have any say-so in the assignment, or how did they divvy you up?
Well, I think the Bob and Eric and Sonny Williams and I were selected about 3 years ago to be part of the initial crew cadre, is what we were called, to start working with both companies. And then I think, obviously, from that mix, we all got selected. And I think the best answer I can give you, Marcia, is that we probably defer this question to Pat Forster, who's the current chief of the astronaut office, and he's probably got all those answers for you.
Okay. Tell me this. Do you have a little competition going on between your two respective vehicles on who might get there first?
Well, there's always a little bit of friendly competition, between flights, but we're going to get to the space station safely. So it's more of just something that we'll rib each other about. It's not something that we're going to press the bounds to make things happen. We're going to make sure we get there safely and execute the mission that we need to do.
For the first crew test flights, not the next mission, but for these first Boeing and SpaceX flights, is that currently being envisioned as a short flight? And what might short be? A week or a month? I'm not clear on that.
At least on the SpaceX side, we're expecting on the order of a couple weeks at this point, so a relatively short mission. We do need to fit in with all the other traffic that's headed towards the International Space Station, which can be a challenge in and of itself. And so right now, still planning on a short mission on the SpaceX side.
And then on the Boeing side, it really depends when we launch. If we launch before mid-year 2019, we're likely going to be a short mission. If for some reason we go a little bit later, it has the potential to be up to 6 months.
And if it is 6 months, I guess the whole crew just is up there for 6 months. Is that, did I hear that right?
Yes, and we're undergoing some initial ISS training just to make sure that we can form a good solid crew to take good care of the ISS while we're waiting for the next American crew to come up. But the decision on the length of the mission will not be determined until sometime early next year.
Oh, I got that. What, you know, for the SpaceX too, and maybe for Doug, you know, you've flown with Chris before. Did you ever think you'd be sitting there on the same stage like you were today, both in the commercial crew business trying to restart human launches, U.S. launches from here?
No, honestly not. You know, like Chris said, you know, when we got back from 135, we had a pretty extensive post-flight. But yeah, I think both of us and probably Sandy and Rex, who flew with us, were just kind of thinking, okay, what do we do next? We knew we were the last flight of the space shuttle program, and so to kind of skip ahead now 7 years later and be up here as part of this group is a huge surprise and honor, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know, Administrator Bridenstine, you heard him say that, you know, he wants everybody to know America's back, NASA's back. Do you, you know, right after the last shuttle flight, it must have been disheartening for all of you, knowing that there was nothing imminent. How important is that alone, just the morale boost needed to get Americans flying from Cape Canaveral again?
Well, it's a great boost to morale. Having we not only have these two ships, the Boeing and SpaceX vehicles, but Orion's just behind that. And I told the new astronaut candidates that showed up that their timing was impeccable, because it's very unusual. This is the first time in history that we've had 3 spacecraft being built at the same time. So exciting times.
You know, and I sort of touched on this earlier, but you know, you guys you're going to be test pilots. You're going to be the first ones, and sort of harkens back to the, you know, like I said, the early days of space flight, the Tom Wolfe Wright stuff. Do you sort of get that sense that this is not just that there's more to this than just your average space mission, the shuttle mission, as it were?
I think we all kind of recognize that the opportunity to fly first on a new vehicle is a special one. All of us went through a test pilot school program, and if you ask us while we were students there, I'm sure every one of us would have said testing a new spacecraft was probably the top of any list, given that opportunity that we would want to take a chance and be a part of. I think really, at least for myself, that aspect of being first and being able to look back on it in history is going to be something that I'll probably cherish after I've done it. But while we make our way to that point, we really do have a lot of work in front of us that I know that I'll definitely be focused on, and that's going to take up most of my brain cells as we march towards the launch date.
Any anxiety, or I mean, I know you guys don't really get scared, but these are brand new spacecraft, and this is the first time that companies will be doing this. What's any safety worries or personal anxiety that you have to deal with over the next year?
You know, this will be my first flight to space, and I think certainly sitting on that launch pad, there'll be a lot of adrenaline, and my heart will be pounding pretty heavily. But there's no fear. It's not anything to be scared about. I mean, both these companies have incredible people that are working to build these vehicles, and they're going to be safe and reliable. And we're going to launch when we're ready to launch, and these vehicles are going to be safe as feasibly possible. So we're going to train well to test these vehicles, to ring them out, make sure our procedures are correct, that we're trained up, and when it's time to be launched, we'll be ready to go.
Nicole, you're in the unique position of having this be your very first space flight. Wow. I mean, is that like up the cool factor for you?
I mean, it certainly does, and I tell you, it's really going to be an honor to work and train with my two crewmates here. They have a vast amount of flight experience, and I'm going to learn so much from them, not only on flying the vehicle and operating space, but just from working on a crew as well. And hopefully, when I come back to Earth, I'll be able to take what I've learned, some of those lessons learned, and apply that to our future space programs.
For Chris and Doug, it'll be 8 years next summer by the time your shuttle will stopped. I mean, that's a long time. I mean, did you really expect it to take that long?
When I embarked on this adventure, I thought 2015 was the right year. You know, for a combination of things, we both find ourselves in a very similar position, getting ready to launch in 2018. You know, I certainly think that we're willing to wait for the right ride at the right time, and one that's safe. So, did I think I'd be here? No, but I'm happy we're flying next year.
Yeah,
Doug.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris, Marsha. You know, it's you fly when you're ready to fly, and you don't push things, and you don't try to rush into, especially the first flight of a vehicle. And you know, all of us have been part of military flight tests over the years, and this is just part of the deal. You know, we do the work we need to do, and everybody, you know, has to sign off and be ready to fly these vehicles before we get on board and actually take them up for the test flights.
Whoever goes first, whichever vehicle it is, and even for both of the launches, I mean, is this going to be like one entirely stupendous day when you guys are on the pad ready to fly?
It's going to be an amazing day for all of us. Nicole will be probably the most amazing because she hasn't done it before. But the other four of us are going to be, you know, every space flight we feel extremely lucky to get the opportunity to fly in space. And it's going to be an exciting times when we get that first rocket out on the pad.
And I think to add to that, I think that the coming home is a big piece of that as well. And so returning safely is, you know, that's the other part of that experience. And I think that's when the adrenaline will come back down, and we'll feel our sense of accomplishment.
Do you put it up there maybe with the first shuttle flight? Where do you put this in the hierarchy of NASA history?
Well, I think you know, somebody else is going to have to figure that out. You know, we are you know, we're lucky enough to be a part of this program, and you know, having gotten to meet, I think almost all of us have got to meet John and Crip many times over the years, and I certainly wouldn't, you know, compare anything that I do with something that those guys did. They're true great American heroes, but by the same token, you know, we are proud to be part of this program and that next step in American spaceflight.
Well, thanks a lot, and good luck to all you, and I'm sure we'll be speaking over the next year.
See you, Marsha.
See you, Marsha.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Prescribed for over 10 years. It's the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists. More than 250,000 patients have chosen Humira to fight their psoriasis. And they're not backing down. For most patients, clearer skin is the proof.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections and cancers include...
Yes, may I get a open mic check, please? Just everyone count to 10 for me real quick.
Or worsening heart failure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B...
Fantastic. Thank all of you.
...symptoms or sores, don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Join over 250,000 people who have chosen Humira. Ask your dermatologist about Humira and go.
All of my life, I've looked for ways to help people. We know we can't always bring our clients the physical relief they deserve. It's the reason we work so hard to fight for the financial relief they need.
If you have a condition which prohibits you from earning a living, there are better days ahead. With offices throughout the state, there's a good chance we have one in your neighborhood. Call Pitts & Zanatti. We'll get you the disability benefits you deserve.
Tired of paying taxes? Well, at Story Lee Furniture, we want to give you some tax relief. Right now, we'll deduct the amount of your state sales tax from your purchase as a rebate back to you. We want to be your furniture store.
I relate to berries and real fruit berry shakes because they're small but powerful. I relate to the ice cream because it's rich and has an amazing singing voice. Got it. No.
Real ice cream and berries. New real fruit berry shakes. Get them half price after 8 p.m. for a limited time.
You're watching WAFF 48 News and the Raycom News Network, Alabama's news source.
Relaunching this country's human spaceflight program. Today, NASA announced the American spacefarers who will once again be the first to launch into space on private, non-NASA spacecraft headed to the International Space Station. Some are seasoned astronauts, others are not. One is actually coming out of retirement. They all join us now live from the Johnson Space Center. What a treat this is. Great to see you all, some of you again. Chris Ferguson, you come out of retirement. You're back in the saddle as part of Boeing, flying on a Decatur-built Atlas V. Doug Hurley, the bookend on the right. You're flying on a SpaceX Falcon 9. Your last flight was together on the final flight of the shuttle program 7 years ago when we last spoke. Now, this first flight for both of you on a commercial rocket has been delayed. Will we see a first certified crewed flight on both rockets to the ISS before next November when America loses its taxi service from Russia?
Of course, Liz, we're going to fly when it's safe and when the rockets are ready. But as you had mentioned, the Boeing vehicle will launch on top of an Atlas V, which is made right there in Decatur, right down the road. We're very confident that we're on track to fly at least 1 and likely 2, and if we're lucky, maybe even 3 flights next year. But again, we'll fly when we're safe and ready.
Very good. Eric Bowe, a seasoned Southerner. Nicole Mann, your first space flight. You both will be part of another first, flying on a ULA Atlas V inside a Boeing capsule. How does that feel? And tell me about your visit here to North Alabama preparing for this maiden voyage.
Well, we're honored to get the opportunity to do this, especially on our first flight, flying the first vehicle. It was neat being able to go to Decatur and see the ship being built. It's basically we're waiting to ship it right now, so it's a great treat.
And Nicole, it's your first space flight.
It sure is, and I couldn't be more excited. This is a great opportunity to fly on this vehicle, and we're looking forward to launching from American soil. You know, as a rookie, I get the opportunity to fly with 2 very seasoned crew members here, and so I'm looking forward to learning a lot from them.
What do you think your biggest challenge is right now?
You know, I think we're going to start the training flow, and there's a lot of work to do in order to get ready to launch. We're still developing some of the procedures and the operations and the techniques for flying this vehicle, but to be honest, that's really going to be the fun part. We're working with the NASA Boeing team to get that all laying flat. There's a lot of testing to be done, and then there's just training to do to get ourselves ready. So, you know, we look towards next year and the launch, and we'll be ready to go.
Very good. Thank you. Bob and Doug, you are both astronauts, married to astronauts. You both have kids. This is a risky profession to begin with, to be the first now for SpaceX. What are you telling your kids?
I think it's a risky profession, but one worth doing, and that's the message that I share with my son. I think he's a little bit young to truly understand that. He's just 4 years old. His biggest question once he found out I was flying on a Dragon was whether or not it was going to roar. So that's out there as well. So I definitely have some work to do to make sure he understands and appreciates seeing me launch into space on a SpaceX rocket here early next year.
Doug?
Yeah, my son was a year old when Chris and I flew on STS-135, so I'm really looking forward to sharing this new experience with him where he's a lot older and can understand kind of how things are and how things go, and just getting to really enjoy that experience in Florida watching a rocket launch.
Very good. Okay, last question, show of hands. Which team is going to fly first?
The NASA
I guess
team.
we'll have two rockets launching at the same time in nearby pads, right?
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for being with us today. Good luck from the Rocket City. We'll be watching the progress from the launch pad, cheering you all on. Blue sky.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
A Huntsville police officer indicted.
Hey everyone, I'm Gavino with Reuters Television. Congratulations on being the first, I guess, U.S. crew since 2011 to head to space. How's it going?
Great, Gavino. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. So I just wanted to kick off talking about the fact that you're all on a space test flight. And as it's a test flight, do you think you're going to have all the kinks worked out by the time you guys head off? Does that make you any nervous at all, being on the first, I guess, space taxi to the ISS? And I guess I want to direct that question to Bob Behnken, as you have spent a considerable amount of time in space, 37 hours. Do you think you're ready?
I think that we're definitely on a path to get ready. You know, we aren't launching today. We aren't launching tomorrow. So we do have some months in front of us to continue our preparation. I do think that being a first flight, I really am motivated. I know Doug is motivated, as well as the rest of the folks who are sitting on the stage here today, to know all we can about those vehicles. Because I think if you ask those of us who've flown in space before or even in airplanes before. There's been something that's happened to us that surprised us, and we had to rely on our experience with the airplane and what we knew about it, or the spacecraft and what we knew about it, in order to kind of safely work through or efficiently work through or otherwise kind of make it through and still accomplish the mission that was in front of us. And so I think we're all motivated to do that, and the test flights definitely do turn it up a notch, but that's what we're probably most excited about.
And I want to direct this next question to Nicole. You're going to be the first American woman launching from U.S. soil, and so you're obviously an inspirational figure to so many kids around the United States, but you're also the first, this is your first trip in space. So how does that make you feel?
Actually, you know, it makes me feel really excited, to be honest. It's an incredible opportunity to go to space and to be a part of this crew. You know, I'm flying with Eric and Fergie, and they have a wealth of experience. And so I'm looking forward to training along these two gentlemen and flying in space. And I plan to learn a lot from them, and we'll bring that back to NASA and then hopefully apply that to our future space programs.
And in terms of training, what did you have to go through to, I guess, be ready? Because all the rest of your, I guess, the crew that you're going to be traveling with, they've been to space before. What sort of hurdles did you have to overcome to be able to, I guess, get in the cockpit?
So I've been at NASA for 5 years now, and during those first 2 years, you go through your initial training, and you know, it's spacewalk training, robotics, and how to operate on board the International Space Station. So I've already completed that portion of the training, and now we'll be able to focus specifically on Starliner and getting ready for that flight.
So most of you have already worked with NASA and been in space and had considerable experience in the armed services, U.S. veterans. But what does this partnership with the private sector mean? How has it helped NASA, and would you consider it saving NASA's spaceflight program? And I guess I want to direct that question to Christopher, who is the Boeing astronaut today. So Christopher, tell me a little bit about this partnership and how you feel it is good for Boeing and SpaceX and NASA.
Well, where I think we're headed in terms of commercial space is in low Earth orbit, where the International Space Station currently is spent over 20 years. I think what you'll see is commercial companies will begin servicing low Earth orbit. So we'll have commercial service for passengers, commercial service for cargo. And what that really does for NASA, you talk about value, is that it enables NASA to focus exclusively on exploration. So I could foresee a scenario where we sort of populate low Earth orbit with whether it's the spacecraft or the cargo that they need to carry on an exploration mission to the moon or Mars, and allow NASA to take over from low Earth orbit and push out to what they call the Space Gateway, which will be orbiting the moon, and then eventually, of course, the ring at the end is going to be the surface of Mars.
So this next question I just want to direct to both teams, both Starliner and the Crew Dragon. What is going to be the challenge once you get to the space station? When we look at the launches from Baikonur, we obviously are seeing something that's been tried and trusted before. Is there some sort of special apparatus that needs to be, I guess, equipped on the space station to enable this sort of launch when you get there? Can one person answer from each team?
Well, going up to the space station and docking, we will need to hook up the vehicles to make sure, because the idea of the vehicles is to be able to stay on station for 6 months. And so that's some of the things that we'll look at.
Yeah, on board space station, there's a docking adapter that's built for both spacecraft. So, you know, we're both vehicles can dock to the forward part of the space station and spend as much as 6 months up there. So, not really a special apparatus. This was all planned in advance, and it's something that both vehicles are capable of interacting with.
We've had a lot of chatter about your, I guess, space flight uniforms that you're going to be wearing. I don't know the technical term for them, but tell me a little bit about the Boeing uniform. I see you smiling, Nicole. Tell me a little bit about what it's like wearing that.
Well, we call it a spacesuit, and it's a pressure suit, and so that's for a launch and entry. you know, if you happen to lose pressure in the vehicle, that suit is going to keep you safe and it's going to keep you alive. So they're actually quite comfortable. We do training in the suit, you know, inside the vehicle so that we're comfortable with it prior to launching. And their main job is to keep us safe, and they'll do that.
And I think on the SpaceX side, you know, very similar function. You know, the physics is the same. You're trying to hold atmosphere inside a suit where the person is, and so we definitely wear them for ascent. We wear it for entry. We'll wear them to some extent during the docking phase as well. And so there really are just to protect that you still have an atmosphere if you should have a problem with the spacecraft itself. And so I've had the luxury, I think several of us have had the luxury of wearing both of the suits and kind of putting them through their paces. And it is really interesting to see how that simple function of physics of basically needing a balloon to keep your body in if it became necessary results in something that may look drastically different on the outside, but functions very similarly when you actually get to wear it.
But the SpaceX version looks rather sleek. It seems to have a little fewer bells and whistles on it. Tell me about, do you know, does it have any different functionality than the Boeing version?
No, I think what you're seeing is that on the Boeing suits, the connection for the comm system and for the breathing gas and the cooling gas is up on the upper torso. You don't quite see the one that's on the lower leg. There's a little bit of a cover over it on the SpaceX suit, and so those interfaces are kind of up front and center on the Boeing suit, but they still exist on the SpaceX suit. They're just covered up with a little plastic cover right now on the right-hand leg. So they've got the same functions. You're just not quite seeing them. It's a little bit more subdued on the SpaceX suit.
So what's the plan when you get to ISS? You are on, obviously, a test flight. This isn't a mission, so you're not going to be spending extended periods of time in space, presumably. Is it going to just be a high five, saying hi to the crew? Are you going to do any missions for NASA? Are you going to be testing any scientific experiments? I guess maybe I want to hear from you, Douglas.
I think that's to be determined, at least on the SpaceX side. The mission duration right now we think is somewhere in the neighborhood of a few weeks. And so part of that, you know, the whole purpose of the test flight is to wring the vehicle out from ascent through docking and then entry, descent, and landing. So some of the stuff we're going to need to do with the vehicles is going to be while we're away from the space station. Obviously, we want to make sure it docks and undocks with the space station, and then see how it does kind of in a quiescent mode while it's attached to space station. So some of those flight plans are still being worked, and I think on both sides of the table, whether it's you know, NASA, Boeing, and SpaceX, to kind of sort out exactly what the tasking is going to be once we're attached to space station.
And Douglas, you've been a test pilot before. Tell me a little bit about what it's like going to be like coming back to Earth. Do you have any, I guess, concern about that? Is that something that you've tested for in the past?
Actually, not as a test pilot, no. I've had 2 reentries on the space shuttle, and the reentry profile for capsules is significantly different. However, I've been through a few reentries, so obviously that's part of the experience base, along with our experience as test pilots, to kind of be there to see how the vehicle reacts, and then obviously to take action if it's needed. So part of that, you know, we're going to have to see through simulations how the vehicle reacts. And then I can talk to people that have flown on capsules. Sunny Williams, which was also a member of our cadre, landed on Soyuz, so she's got some capsule experience, as well as many others in our astronaut office. So we can pull on that experience as well, and then our test pilot experience, and then obviously the simulations that SpaceX is going to provide with regard to the entry.
All right, well, congratulations to you all. Good luck on your test flight, and Reuters wishes you the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
The bribe.
Well, I think there's blowing back. Sometimes you see them reverse.
About 10 seconds away from the toss.
Big announcement from NASA today, and NASA introduced the first U.S. astronauts who will fly on American-made commercial spacecraft to and from the International Space Station, and it's an endeavor that will return astronaut launches to U.S. soil for the first time since the space shuttle's retirement in 2011.
NASA's up.
Astronauts to take the crew the first test flight and missions on both Boeing's CST-100 Starliner and SpaceX's Crew Dragon. Okay, they had 9. We got 5 of them here. That's pretty good. I like that. Eric Bowe, Charles Ferguson, Nicole Mann, Bob Benkin, and Doug Burley. So first, let me just give you a mass congratulations here on this assignment. This is tremendous. You know, we live in a part of the country here where you guys are such heroes to us. You know, the people that do this and the bravery and the skill that it takes. A lot of you want to get you all in. Let's start with Eric. Eric Bowe was born in Miami, grew up in Atlanta, piloted the Space Shuttle Endeavour for STS-126 and Discovery on the final flight. So, Eric,
I can go ahead and take a close-up if you want.
Challenges, what you expect, what you hope to get this thing going as you proceed toward these goals.
Could you repeat that question? You got stepped on. Could you repeat the question?
What are your goals here initially in the short term?
The goals for the flight, or just the goals as we get training?
Yes.
As the goals we get training.
The goals in the training for you.
Right. We've done a lot of it. We've been working with the cadre for the last 3 years on the vehicle. We've seen a lot of changes come together to make some really revolutionary change, but there's still a lot of work before we get to flight. A lot of work for us training-wise. We're just starting our training flow, and there's a lot of work just to continue to build the spaceships to have them ready for first flight. So really looking forward to getting to work and working with the team to make this all happen.
Christopher Ferguson is from Philadelphia, retired Navy captain, retired in NASA in 2011, has been a part of the Boeing CST-100 Starliner. That flow of getting things ready, Christopher, give us a sense of the people who are not educated on that. What does that mean exactly? What type of things do you do to get ready?
So right now we have 3 different vehicles, 3 different spacecraft that are under construction at our facility in a former orbiter processing building out in Florida. So our preparation will include some academic training, some simulator training, and then some time spent in the actual vehicles that we'll fly in. Pretty soon we're going to send one of our test spacecraft out to a thermal vacuum chamber in El Segundo, California. We'll be out there watching every bit of the way. So it's a little bit of academics and a little bit of hands-on experience with actual spacecraft that we'll fly in. It's a great thing.
Corps Lieutenant Colonel, give us a sense of what the competition is for these spots. How many people that you had to beat out to get this? Because these are coveted spots.
So it's not so much of a competition, really. You know, once you are selected and you're an astronaut at NASA, you train for your initial training for the first 2 years, and then you're what's called space flight assignable. And, you know, right now we have Soyuz, we have SpaceX, we have Boeing, and soon we're going to have Orion come online. And there's a lot that goes into which flight that you're going to fly and who's the best fit for which mission. And I think when, you know, you are fortunate enough to be assigned that mission, you're looking forward to starting the training flow, and you're just ready to launch. We all really support each other in the office. I don't feel like there's any sort of a competition for these spots.
Robert Benkin and Douglas Hurley, want to get you both in. Can you speak to the people about what it's like to see the space program getting some momentum in the direction to get back up in the heavens again? We've got about 45 seconds left total for both of you.
Okay, well, the great thing about it for me is to actually having seen us go down to 0 spaceships when we retired the space shuttle. It's just awesome to see 3 coming online right now with the Boeing vehicle, the Dragon vehicle, and Orion as we go forward. It's just an awesome time to be an astronaut.
Yeah, to get U.S. spacecraft launching from Florida again, I think we're all really excited to be part of that, and we're excited for the rest of the country to get to see these things again.
And well, hey, again, you guys are heroes to us. We know we're testing your patience when you're doing 1,000 of these interviews over the course of the day. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. We love to see you guys on television. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Continuing on with maybe the
All right, terrific. Hi there. Thanks so much for taking the time. Michael Greshko here from National Geographic. My first question for all of you is that now that we're a few hours removed from the announcement this morning, how much has it set in that this time next year you all may well be on the launch pad?
Well, I would say that for me, it's definitely set in, but the road has kind of been a long one. So while folks are just seeing it for the first time today, maybe in terms of the assignments kind of jumping out there, we all started this journey years ago, kind of working with both providers, at least on the NASA side. I know Chris Ferguson, of course, his fate with the Boeing company was kind of sealed, if you will. But I think for us, it's just really exciting to be able to share what's been going on with the Commercial Crew Program and get everybody else kind of focused on what we're going to accomplish over the next year or so. That's really the excitement that's out there for me. And having folks that I've known for years reach out to me and congratulate me today, kind of to reinvigorate them, has just been awesome.
Mm-hmm. And to reiterate from comments that Administrator Bridenstine made earlier today, the Commercial Crew Program will be bringing launches for U.S. astronauts back to U.S. soil on U.S. aircraft. What does that mean for you all, and what does that mean for the country?
Well, it means a lot of great things for the country. Having the opportunity, right now we have not only those two vehicles, but Orion, so we actually have 3 spaceships that are in the works, and having the opportunity to get to test and fly one of these vehicles is going to be very exciting, and it's an important time because this gives us the capability. These new commercial vehicles will not only fly NASA missions, but they'll also go out and fly with other groups, universities, other countries, have the ability to bring in other folks to come into the space business.
Terrific. Thank you. And this is a question for all of you. Based on the training and simulations that you all have done so far, getting down to brass tacks, what's it going to be like to pilot these spacecraft? I mean, how will they compare to the Space Shuttle or Soyuz?
It's a great question. The shuttle was developed in the 1970s, so the crew interface with the shuttle could sometimes be pretty complicated. I would say probably the best way to describe it. Over 2,000 switches and circuit breakers in the vehicle, and it was pretty tough for one person to just keep track of everything that was going on. And these vehicles, I think, leverage 30 or 40 years of technology development since then. And then I think an increased emphasis on error trapping and just the crew vehicle interface to make it more intuitive and easier. And then obviously on top of that is some autonomy capability throughout almost the entire envelope of those vehicles. So they hopefully will be much simpler to fly than the Space Shuttle, much easier to fly than the Space Shuttle. And the plan with this program is to have a safe, reliable resource to get us to and from space station.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, the question for Nicole, this will be your first space flight, but you're an experienced test pilot. What will be going through your head as you put Starliner through its paces? And for a vehicle like this, what does putting it through its paces actually look like?
Well, really, it starts on Monday when we start training, and there's a lot of testing and development to still be done with this vehicle. We need to figure out how we're going to operate it, how we're going to communicate with the ground, what our roles and responsibilities are going to be. So going through that process is going to be great. And then when we have the opportunity to launch, to fly the mission, and then return safely here to Earth, we'll be checking out all of those systems.
Mm-hmm. Bob, Doug, oh, no, please. Bob, Doug, does that resonate for you with Crew Dragon?
It absolutely does. I think we're in a slightly different mode than Nicole is, because we've been participating with both of the partners for a little bit deeper and a little bit longer than she has. But we're definitely participating. We've got events lined up over the next month where we either travel to Hawthorne or we travel down to Florida to kind of both keep tabs on the vehicle and do what training that we can at this point. You know, as with any test program, we'll probably be fully trained very close to the launch date, because we'll continue to evolve, and we'll continue to, you know, make it as optimal as we possibly can right up until the last minute. But definitely really looking forward to it, and our schedules are going to keep us busy over the next year or so.
And this is a question for all of you, but particularly Chris. Chris, you're going up as a private astronaut representing Boeing, kind of a first-of-your-kind position. Now and in the years to come, how do you all see, you know, a private astronaut corps interfacing with astronauts from public space agencies such as NASA?
It's a great question. Now, I've had the opportunity to work with just about everybody on the stage here, and so when we launch, it's going to be crew concept, right? It'll be a badgeless environment for us. But the question is, what does the future hold? Very interesting. You know, right now we sort of serve our flagship customer, which is NASA. But after that, what will come? If we build it, will we develop a customer base for, say, space tourism, perhaps countries that are interested in but don't have the infrastructure, but are interested in forming a small space program of their own. So I think we're sort of at the threshold of, just like commercial air travel was 100 years ago, we're at the threshold of commercial space travel, and what will it look like 100 years from now?
Great, thank you. You know, kind of on that front, you know, as you alluded to, the first big push here is for commercial crews to shuttle astronauts, you know, to and from the International Space Station. But, you know, beyond the 2020s, what kind of human presence do you think there's going to be in low Earth orbit, and how do you see commercial crew kind of serving that capability?
Well, you can see that low Earth orbit, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But having two vehicles that we can, you know, two different vehicles to work with low Earth orbit, the goal is to get it so the access is easy, and that's part of these ships, is to make it simpler, faster, more affordable to get into orbit. And then I think there'll be all kinds of things that will, you know, it's hard to actually tell, but as time goes on, we'll actually see a lot of things grow out of it just by having easier access to space.
Mm-hmm. And it's no secret that that it's been kind of a winding road to get to this point. There have been a couple years of delays. You know, what should the general public make of those kinds of delays? And as test pilots in this kind of program, how much is that kind of rescheduling par for the course?
I guess I'd kind of jump out there. A couple years ago, I had a house built, and there are significant challenges, even with an experienced contractor, getting a house built. And, you know, folks build houses all the time, but we had a lot of difficulty getting one done on schedule. Spacecraft, quite a bit more complicated than that. And I expect, you know, really what I would like the public to take away from this is that I wouldn't say that there's something that we've identified necessarily that is super unsafe whenever there is a scheduled delay. But what we are doing is making these vehicles as safe as we possibly can as we kind of go forward. And so that safety aspect is really the fundamental reason why the schedule ends up being so challenged, because when we do find something, we do need to address it. We typically don't just ignore that and say, hey, that's a risk that's out there. We typically try to address it if it's something that was unforeseen, that cropped up in testing or cropped up in someplace in the development cycle. So I would like them to really focus on safety when they see those schedule changes.
Gotcha. Thank you. The last U.S. seat on Soyuz, as of right now, is scheduled to return next November. If there are any more sort of delays, how concerned are you all? How concerned should we be about interrupting U.S. access to the ISS?
I think we definitely do need to continue to maintain our presence on board the International Space Station. For folks that follow it closely, you'll see that we do have failures from time to time where we do need to swap out a critical piece of hardware to preserve that orbiting laboratory. And so whether it's a pump module or a piece of electronic component, we definitely do need to swap that hardware out. And that takes a crew, it takes care and feeding to keep the space station healthy and operating. And so anytime that we don't have access, we'll be putting that $100 billion asset at risk. And so I just look at it as critical. I think that we all do, and I think it's one of the reasons that on the commercial crew program side, there's been talk about even extending one of the early missions if we found ourselves in that situation.
Gotcha. Thank you. Sort of a break of a question for you. You've been extremely generous with your time, all day today, fielding not just my questions, but questions from everyone everywhere. Are there any questions that you kind of wished that somebody would ask you at this moment that no one has yet? And if so, what is that question?
When are you going to be done? No, just kidding. No, I think it's been a fun day. It's been an exciting day, not only for us, but I think for the agency, for the country, for these companies, and we're just. I think honestly, we're happy to be here, and we're proud to serve. I think, as we say quite a bit, but. I think we've been asked a lot of questions today, and I think we have some more to go, but we're happy to do it, and it's a privilege to be here.
And one last question for you all. As robots become more and more capable, some people have raised the question whether we really do need to be sending human crews out, into low Earth orbit and solar system and maybe even beyond to explore. For you all, why is it important that as humankind, ventures out beyond Earth, that there's a human presence associated with that?
It's important to keep a human in the loop. I think it's going to be really a partnership between robotics and rovers and humans that are out there exploring. And that's going to expand our capability. So, for instance, if I'm on the surface of Mars, I may have 3 or 4 robots or rovers with me, and that will expand the area that I can then see. But we don't have artificial intelligence developed enough to this point to make a real-time call on my entire environment and use my training to know what I need to be looking at or how to respond to a situation. So I think we'll continue to have humans in the loop, and I think that the robotic capability that will add to us will just make us even stronger.
Terrific. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Congratulations. And thanks again. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's so great to see you all. I'm Amanda Grace at King 5 in Seattle.
Hello.
Hi, Amanda.
I'd love to have you all introduce yourselves, if you don't mind.
I'm Chris Ferguson. I work for the Boeing Company.
I'm Nicole Mann.
Eric Poe.
Bob Benkin.
Doug Hurley.
Well, it's great to have you all here. I'll just have you all, or one of you, jump in on these questions as you see fit. I know you've been doing this all day, so I'm sure you're pros at this point. So first of all, this is really exciting. How does it feel to be the first American astronauts chosen to fly in these new commercial aircraft, or new commercial spacecraft?
For me, it's pretty awesome. I think all of us who, when we went through our test pilot school class, thought that probably the greatest job we could ever get would be to be a part of a new test airplane program, and you turn that into a spacecraft instead of an airplane, and it just makes it that much better. And so it's probably the coolest thing we could have got from a job perspective, so it's awesome.
Tell me a little bit more about your plans for the mission, or the missions.
Well, the plans for the missions are to shake out both groups, or we're going to shake out each of the vehicles individually to make sure that they can basically do their mission. We're going to be looking at all the different phases of flight of the spaceship, and as Bob was talking about, it's a privilege to get the chance to, as a test pilot, you dream about getting the opportunity to test something new, and testing a spacecraft is really special.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the research that's happening up in space that we have no idea is going on?
Well, I think from a research perspective, there's just hundreds of experiments literally going on board the International Space Station at any time, whether it's investigating combustion phenomenology, where somebody predicts what they expect to happen as you take away gravity from the equation, and then they get to test it out and see if that was really true or not, and they can anchor their models for the work that they do back here on Earth. That's true in just so many different fields, from combustion to metallurgy to the physical sciences. We're also testing on the astronauts themselves and learning how to live and operate in space, and how the human body adapts for future missions that may be longer or may take us back to the moon or onto Mars.
Christopher, I know you mentioned that you're with Boeing. I know you retired from NASA. You've been working on the Starliner. What can you tell us a bit about the Starliner? We've got Boeing in our backyard, so we've got a personal interest in the Starliner.
Well, I've been a part of the program since about 2012, so I've had the opportunity to see it grow from just a clean sheet design up to we're now building 3 different spacecraft that we'll reuse up to 10 times. We're building them in Florida. But as you mentioned, we're part of the larger Boeing family, so we'll see what commercial space is all about as we go forward. This unique opportunity to essentially lease a service, and then perhaps grow that business into something that we can't even conceive of today.
Nicole, I know this is going to be your first trip to space. So what are you looking forward to?
Well, for me, this is an opportunity of a lifetime to go to space, number one, and then number two, to be a part of these crews and to fly on the first vehicle of Starliner. So I'm looking forward to the training. I'm looking forward to helping where I can to develop the techniques and procedures that we'll need to operate in space, and then certainly for the mission. I feel very fortunate to get to train and fly among these 2 gentlemen who have a vast amount of spaceflight experience, and I'm hoping to learn a lot from them and then bring that back to NASA.
I think a lot of us want to know if some of these test flights get us closer to sending passenger flights to space.
Oh, I certainly think that's the case. I mean, part of this whole process is to kind of combine the government and the private sector to make access to space easier and less expensive. And so the next logical step may be, private citizens or scientists or smaller countries that maybe can't afford to have their own space agency fly into space. So this is just the beginning of this, and I think there's a lot more to come.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Tammy.
Hello, Tammy.
Hear me? This is Tammy Fields,
We can hear you.
13,
We got you loud and clear, Tammy.
from Central Florida. Hello, hello?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, hello? This is Tammy. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Testing. Can you hear me?
She can't
We
hear
can
us.
hear you. I don't think she can see us here. Volume up.
Hello, hello? Hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Chris, can you hear me? This is Tammy Fields.
Yes, we can hear you, Tammy.
Hello. Testing. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Tammy.
Is she
Yes.
talking to us?
Yes, we can hear.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
thank you. I can.
All right.
Quite a delay there.
Hold on, guys. We have a huge delay. We'll try to get it figured out in a second. Hold on.
I think there must be a delay.
There's a lot of delays going around.